And back then you could video something and put it on Google or YouTube or Facebook or whatever it was, and it would be circulated. Now they bury us. You can't, if you Google my name and like a very specific disease that I've treated and I've SEO'd it perfect, I'm not even on the radar, which is crazy.
Hey everybody, our mission here at the Heart Coherence Collaborative is to get people in touch with the healing power of the heart.
And we really need your help. Right now, only 1% of viewers subscribe. We are aiming to take that number to 6%.
The reason why we want to do that is the more people that subscribe, the more people in the world can learn the magical practice of heart coherence.
So please help us out. If you've ever listened, if you love this message, please just take a moment to subscribe.
Thank you so much.
We love you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We are super excited to have Dr. John Lieurance with us, and we are going to be talking about all things health, especially in the area of supplements. He has a company called Mitozen, and we've taken some of his products, and I know our group has such a big interest in how do we feel better in all the ways, and it's one of our passions. So we're so excited to have you, Dr. John. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm super stoked because I started following your work after hearing Ben Greenfield and Josh Trent, all these people that really are pioneers in the field of what you should actually be putting into your body. They had you on, and they were talking about a bunch of different products. Some of them I've tried and had like tremendous results. So I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit about the science of those today and learning about all the other cool products you have, because it seems like you've developed like this next gen like shop for all things supplementation. So first off, who are you and how did you create this beautiful company, Mitozen?
Yeah, well, thanks. I have a kind of an interesting history with suffering from some challenges in my own health, and I went into natural medicine in the field of chiropractic first, and then naturopathic medicine, and I practice within the chiropractic field as a neurologist. So just like in medicine, the medical doctors can become neurologists. We have the same type of situation in chiropractic, and so really working with a lot of neurological patients. But I got sick at a point in my life when I was in my 30s, and it's 20 years now, but it was a good 12, 13, 14 years of just really being sick and searching and trying to find what was wrong with me, getting diagnoses like ankylosing spondylitis, and just not anything that was really reflecting what was truly going on with me. And I knew there was going to be a root cause or something that I could find if I just did the right test or I found the right doctor. And so I kept searching, and found out that I had just outrageously high Epstein-Barr virus titers. I had Lyme disease and Candida and like all the co-infections. So I really didn't have an immune system that was working. And then, after I got myself fairly back on my feet, but not totally, I discovered a whole lot of mold in my house. And really, honestly, like I rented the house out for a while, and I just remodeled it over a year ago, and there was even a lot more than I thought, because we wound up tearing some things down. I'm like, oh my God, no wonder. We had this, what's like, what a widow's watch is?
No.
It's like it was a little deck on the roof that was right over my bed.
Oh, okay.
And it was leaking, and so it was this big little cavern, just mold, and it just right over my bed too. So you can't really have a worse location.
That's it.
Yeah. Wow.
So it got me, I was already on the path really, because of my career choice, and I had a bit of a reputation for being able to figure things out where other doctors weren't able to figure it out. And I think after that experience, it just really took me to another level of empathy and understanding of really truly what's at the core of disease and how to approach it and how to, you know, mitigate what happened with me, and discovering that this is actually something that's pretty ubiquitous and common in the world right now. And you're hearing about it a lot. I mean, I know, like, you know, a lot of people, everybody from Dave Asprey to Luke Story to even Josh Trent, you know, like just about everybody has this Lyme mold kind of story, right? And this, it's really quite a thing, and it's very difficult to treat. And most doctors really don't have an answer except antibiotics, which really don't work, because and this is something I think that'll really kind of segue into the Mitozen, because it's this idea of having a medicine that gets rid of a symptom, right? Like there's the patient that goes to the doctor and says, hey, you know, I got a cough, you know, oh, okay, well, take this medicine and the cough goes away, right? And so the cough may be caused by an infection, right? So if the doctor is going to give something to suppress the cough, you're suppressing the body's desire to expel that biofilm, right? That is harboring that infection, which then creates a scenario where that individual might stay sick longer, but be comfortable through that illness. And ultimately, is it making the individual healthier or not, is, you know, in that situation might be questionable. But this is just one example of a lot of different examples that you can look at, that in many situations, the host is not better off with the remedy. Antibiotics are a very clear, unless it's an emergency, you know, and there's a lot of acute emergency situations where absolutely you have to take an antibiotic, but 90% of the antibiotics that are taken for situations that people really didn't need to take them. And what happens is it obliterates our microbiome. Forget the fact that we're building antibiotic resistant microbes that then are like really very difficult to handle. We haven't genetically developed in order to be dealing with them. So forget that and just consider the fact that we have these trillions of bacteria in our body. And when you throw an antibiotic in there, you obliterate not just the good ones, but the bad ones. And everybody gets affected. And then it can take, what studies show, up to 2 years to restore that microbiome. And the problem with our system is that the way that it's structured is that it's very capitalistic with big pharma, right? It's about making the shareholders happy. I mean, all of these companies are public. They have shareholders, there's stockholders, and they are expecting revenue to continue to climb. And so these companies have to look at profit centers and profit sources that allow this situation where you can't patent things that are natural. So there's patent law, and then you have to combine the patent law issue with this need to continue to grow profit, right? So you can't have an exclusivity over something like melatonin, or methylene blue is precedes the FDA. You can't have a patent on oregano oil or clove or sage or bay leaf, or like, you can't have a patent over NAD, which is something that you had mentioned before we started recording. So there's things that are in nature that work really, really well, that are a much better option, that won't leave the host in worse shape, but yet we're choosing things that are destructive and they're not as natural, because that's what fits the capitalistic big pharma kind of agenda. So I'm in a situation where I'm at risk for people to come in and say, hey, that's a really good idea. I'm going to go do the same thing. I mean, obviously, I can get trademarks on the names of my products, or I can have kind of unique blends that I don't necessarily disclose the exact amounts. It's kind of a proprietary blend. These are like kind of your secrets with supplement companies and so forth. But ultimately, you know, I don't have any patents at all. I mean, I think a lot of supplement companies will have various patents, but it wouldn't be a situation that if somebody had like a single product and they were to build it to like some sort of $1 billion product, that there would be a comfort level because it would be something that could be copied, right? So, but I'm okay with that because my feelings are that the products that we've made and the combinations that we've made, you know, they've been copied to some extent. There's been a few things, but ultimately, it's not my desire to become a billionaire. You know, it's like I want to serve my fellow humans, and I want to make products that work. And you know, there's a lot of financial gain with just, you know, good business and doing good things. Relationships are more important than finances to me. Hearing the results and just knowing that people are getting better and finding results with the products is really, that's probably higher on my priority list than actually, you know, the financial aspect. And I really wish that was the culture with, you know, our healthcare model, because what a change that would make, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Well, thank you for creating such a cool company.
Yeah. So how does it end up happening? You obviously have a lot of people that you work with, and then you go through your own health crisis. How do you end up developing the company? Was it after your own health crisis that you sought out things and were really motivated and then brought it together?
So I had a company going through that whole process, and I was one of the first kind of guys that got on YouTube and Google and so forth and just started to put out videos because I was doing some unique work with my functional neurology, and I was doing this endonasal balloon adjustment and just seeing people on the table have these miraculous, and I'm like, I've got to like put this out into the world. And back then you could video something and put it on Google or YouTube or Facebook or whatever it was, and you know, it would be circulated. Now they bury us. You know, you can't, if you Google my name and like a very specific disease that I've treated and I've SEO'd it perfect, I'm not even on the radar, which is crazy. You would
That
get,
is true.
yeah, if you did something on like nasal congestion and my name or something, you would get all kinds of things on drug companies and blah, blah, blah. It's just crazy. But it used to be that, you know, like there was a rare neurological condition that I was getting really good results. I still am. It's called palatal myoclonus. It's a movement disorder of the palate and the throat. And I would just put some videos out, and I would have, you know, all these people. And for a while, I was getting a lot of patients. I don't even get calls anymore because nobody can find me. You know, these people get diagnosed with this rare disease. It used to be, oh, Dr. John, palatalmyoclonus.com, and there's all this info. We still have the site, but like, you know, I'm kind of right now, I'm like kind of going in different directions. So I'm not like really motivated to go and like really chase and advertise a lot of things and just let them come to me naturally. But I kind of forget what my point was, but when I got, how I started the company, I found when I started to get sick, I noticed that when I took glutathione suppositories, I felt much better. And it was one of the few things that really moved the needle for me. And I was getting them from a compounding pharmacy. And so because I was seeing all of this like completely like free advertising for the work I was doing with the balloons and the functional neurology, it's called functional cranial release is the technique that I do. And I was like, well, why don't I start putting information out about these glutathione suppositories? I'll have them made and I'll just start selling them, right? And I didn't even really start a separate company. It was just part of my clinic. We were, you know, I'd have my staff sending them out. And that went on for about 5 or 6 years. And kind of in the interim, there was some products that I started to develop. One is still one of our bigger selling items is called Glutastat, which is an essential oil, glutathione, NAC, colloidal silver, which is a spray in the nose. And it's like for nasal hygiene. And have you guys tried that one yet?
Not
No,
that one,
no.
no. Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, that was the product that Ben started to blog about when COVID hit.
Mm.
And this is when my little company turned into somewhat of a big company. And overnight, you know, in the clinic, we weren't seeing a lot of patients because of COVID, but Ben started to talk about the Glutastat nasal spray as he's using for his family. And so he just started sending a lot of traffic. And then when we recorded our first podcast, it was just very well received in the biohacking community. And but you know, before Ben came on board, I was really interested in because the only thing I could get made with these compounding pharmacies was just very vanilla suppositories. You know, it would be like, you know, just glutathione and that's it, right? And so then I'm like, man, I want to add terpenes, I want to add different cofactors and nutrients, and like I want to like science this out and make some really, really powerful formulas, right? And so I tried to find somebody that could do that for me, and I just couldn't. So we started doing it ourselves, and we started making these formulas ourselves. And you know, it was very humble beginnings, you know, very, very similar to like, you know, Apple, you know, where it was made in the garage. We weren't necessarily making them in the garage, but you know, I was doing everything at one point. Like I was literally going home and staying late and making a lot of the products just myself. And now it's like I walk around and I don't even know half the people in, you know, we're in a 25,000 square foot building here. We have our clinic. I'm in the clinic side, but we have like a whole warehouse, and we produce our products and shipping department. And it's been a real lesson in business and how to handle, like, you know, growth and keeping the quality the same with in sourcing the best ingredients. And it's been quite a journey.
Yeah. Well, that is amazing. We came across you. I came across you because I had heard a lot of different people mentioning NAD. I had heard it on Joe Rogan. There was a doctor on Joe Rogan who was mentioning that like rats were on treadmills, like breaking records after taking NAD. And then I had heard a commercial where you had popped up and you talked about NAD's use and addiction. And so I had this thing happen when I went to this healing ceremony, and a part of it was doing tobacco. And I literally did that and got hooked on nicotine. Like, boom, I was gone. And
Was
so,
it the Hape?
Ape, yeah. And I just had like this intense pull. And so, bought your product and literally like was able to just come off it, which is so rare for me. I had, you know, in high school or college, I did nicotine. And it was like tough to get off, you know. But with your product, it was easy, and I don't know why. But I would love to just talk about NAD. And the other benefit I found was like the rats. I was going to the gym and I was on like the elliptical for 2 hours straight. It was absurd. And so now in my life, whenever I need like this energetic push, I order the NAD and I just have like the best couple weeks.
Is that our NAD? The
Yeah, yours. Yeah,
yeah.
suppository. I love it. I love it so much.
Well, we should probably just preface that because a lot of people may start to, like, you know, pull away a little bit thinking about a rectal absorption, right? So a suppository or bullet is placed in the butt, basically. You know? Let's get to the bottom of it. But you know, you have a lot of blood vessels down there that go and carry nutrients right into the bloodstream. And what's unique about that route is that that blood doesn't go through the liver. And so you have about 80% of the blood that goes through that area just goes right into the body. And so the liver, it first pass through the liver really breaks a lot of nutrients down. And so besides the enzymes in your mouth and the enzymes and the acid in your stomach, the nutrients really have to go through a lot of very stressful conditions. And the first pass through the liver is also very stressful. So getting it right into the bloodstream, avoiding that first pass through the liver allows these nutrients to stay whole and have a very, very high absorption. But there's one other thing that makes it so powerful is, in order to understand this, you have to understand something called peak plasma. And so peak plasma means whenever you ingest or take any type of a nutrient, whether it's an IV, an IM injection, transdermal, liposomal, suppository, nasal spray, whatever, there's going to be a spike in that substance in your bloodstream, and it's going to stay for a certain amount of time, right? And so usually, like a lot of like pills that you take, like if you took CoQ10 or something like that, you might have a peak plasma that's like an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. That means that the body and the cells have that window to pull that nutrient into the cell, and then it's gone. Because ultimately the cell is where that's where it's going to have its impact on you, is if it gets into the cell. So cellular absorption really is the ultimate of, taking the supplement. How much are you getting in the cell? And it's not always taking a huge amount, a huge dose is going to push more into the cell. Sometimes it's having a small dose available for a long period of time, because cells only have a certain rate that they can bring nutrients in, right? They can't just open these floodgates and let a whole bunch in all at one time. And so if you can have, with suppository, you have a peak plasma that's between 5 and 7 hours. If you do an IV, it's still like peak plasma is like an hour.
Oh, wow.
Once the IV's done, it clears out of your system. So you could argue that, and the NAD max is a lot of NAD. It's 500 milligrams of NAD, which is as much or more than a lot of clinics will infuse for $500 to $1,000. And then it also has 250 milligrams of both precursors, 250 milligrams of NR and 250 milligrams of NMN. So, and then we also built in some polyphenols that inhibit the NAD from supporting some of the cells we don't want it to support, which are primarily what's called a senescent cell or a zombie cell.
Oh, okay. That's great. Yeah. Now, why with addiction? Could you just talk about the NAD and addiction? Why is that helping there?
Well, because when the brain is not, your brain is the most metabolically sensitive organ in the body. So when your energy levels start to go down, the brain suffers first, right? And so NAD is something that is depleted with stress, drugs, alcohol, sleep. Those are the physical, mental, emotional stress, lack of sleep, alcohol, and a number of different drugs, right? So a lot of people that are addicts, or they're, maybe they're not an addict, maybe they just had a surgery and they have to take a bunch of opiates, right? Anybody that's been in that situation, you get to a point where you just feel a lot of gloom. You don't feel good. You feel terrible. Why do you feel terrible? Because your cellular energy is so low that your brain doesn't have the energy to do all of the different tasks that it needs to do. And one of the most common things that happen when we have low energy levels is we have depression and mood disorders. And so by replenishing that NAD, we're basically replenishing what's been taken, so that now the cellular energy can be back to what it was normally, and you have an improvement in the mood. And so when you improve the mood, it's easy to make changes in the life, right? It's like you're solid, you're good, you've got energy, you feel good, you feel confident.
Yeah.
And you can be like, I don't need to do that anymore.
That's exactly what it feels like. It feels like all my cells are good when I take NAD. It's like my cells are good. I feel good. I'm out, I'm active, having a great day every single time. So
Yeah.
cool. Thank you for that creation.
Man, I love to hear that. And I'm just so happy that this has been helping you.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, we have done it in all different forms.
Yeah.
And that's what we've landed on, that we keep doing.
Yeah, I tried like the nasal spray. We bought like the injectable kind too, and didn't have as much benefit. So the nasal
Well,
spray felt nothing,
Uh,
honestly.
let's talk about, we actually sell neuro NAD nasal spray, which is an NAD nasal spray, but people, they ask me all the time, like, well, so what the real difference is that the nasal passage has a direct line to the brain.
Hmm.
So what you're not going to get a lot of is you're not going to get a lot of NAD throughout the body, because the amount of NAD in one or two or three or four sprays, I mean, you start getting to 3 or 4 sprays, it's just dripping out of your nose. So there's only so much. And so then you look at, well, how many milligrams of NAD was in that liquid, right? And it's not anything near the 1,000 milligrams in the suppository. I can tell you that. I mean, you might be at like 5 milligrams,
Yeah.
maybe, right? Because if you start getting too much, that starts to burn, it's uncomfortable. There's only so much you can put in nasal spray preparations before they start become problematic. So, but however, if I do a suppository, all of those nutrients is going throughout the whole body,
Mm,
and enough is going to get into the brain. So they are kind of nice to be used together. Like if you want like a quick boost,
Mhm.
yeah.
you're not going to get that with the suppository. You've got to be patient and give it an hour or two, or, and
Right.
it's going to be more subtle, right? But you want like a quick boost or like some sort of breakthrough, you're in the middle of work and you're kind of just wanting a nice boost. That's when it might be, but it's going to be a boost and it's going to be short-lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
And we
Got it.
didn't do your nasal spray. We did it from another company. So you also never know when you're experimenting. Is it the form that you're taking? Is it the
Right.
product that we bought? But we
That
just,
and like it's really good to hear you say that, because when you're comparing it to the 500 milligrams and you're saying that it would be 5, that's what I felt like. I felt like, oh, this is so much lighter. So it's kind of a letdown. I wanted to just keep spraying, but nothing happened. So
Yeah. Yeah. Methylation's been a big buzzword lately. And I bring that up because my go-to, if I'm really looking for a nice boost,
hmm,
is we have a suppository called Methylmax.
hmm,
And Methylmax really works on methylation. And methylation is another strategy to really boost brain power, because oftentimes our methylation pathways aren't really robust. And there's a lot of gene disruption that's happened in the last decade, where people are not methylating very well from their genetics, right? They're not and so we get methylation from converting folic acid into its active form of folic acid, which is methyl tetrahydrofolate. And I I remember when I first heard about this gene variant, it was a good 20 years ago, and it was a Dr. Wally Schmidt, who's like absolutely amazing. And he was saying it maybe 10 or 20% of the population, but he was really excited about it because a lot of the sick people that he was seeing were kind of in that category. But now I'm hearing people talk 60, 70, 80% of the population having these SNPs that aren't allowing them to convert into active folic acid. But B vitamins, they're also methylate. They're important for methylation. So your folic acid, your B vitamins, and then there's some different herbs that really support methylation. So I put together what I thought was kind of like the dream team of nutrients to support methylation. And when you look at a lot of these nutrients, is that they're all very poorly absorbed orally.
hmm.
In other words, you can't take a lot of these things in a pill form, the folic acid and the B vitamins. And that's why a lot of clinics and doctors will do these as an injection.
Okay.
Or in an IV, like a Myers cocktail basically has a lot of that in it, along with vitamin C.
Hmm.
So basically this Methylmax is kind of like a Myers cocktail to go. And
Cool.
I like to do one of the Methylmax and one of the NADs, especially when I'm traveling. It's like, I don't know if you guys do a lot of traveling, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
when my body feels the most taxed.
Wow. Yeah, we'll definitely try that. Thank you.
yeah, that is
Excited.
a good idea for traveling. I would love to talk to you about sleep is such a big area for people. And you are really the first person that I've heard talk about high dose melatonin. People have so many different ideas about melatonin. Is it good? Is it bad? So I'd love to hear you talk more about that and why you believe in high dose melatonin.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I got interested in high dose melatonin when I was first introduced. Dietrich Klinghardt was speaking, and he was actually kind of sitting not too far from me, but it was a different speaker that was talking about high dose melatonin. But then when he went up on his presentation, he spoke about it a little bit as well. And I think he got inspired as much as I did, because since then, I when I hear him talk, I hear him, Dietrich Klinghardt's a German, and he's very well known in the natural medicine field, and he's brilliant. And so then Frank Schallenberger, another person that I was really kind of did some internship with, and I actually went to his clinic, and he was really into this super high dose of melatonin. Then he suggested, he says, John, why don't you start taking like a couple 100 milligrams? And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, you should, because you're still having a lot of neurological problems from the Lyme disease, like memory, word finding issues. I was still struggling a little bit. And he said, I think that'll really help that. And so I said, okay. So I started taking a pill, melatonin, and started taking a couple 100 milligrams before bed. And it was definitely one of those things where at first you're like, wow, I really got some really deep sleep, and I woke up and I feel a little groggy. But that only went on for a couple of days for me. And then, I have been on it on high doses, and sometimes up to a gram before bed. And what's interesting is I can stop taking melatonin at any point and I still sleep really well. It doesn't, like, your melatonin doesn't have a negative feedback loop. And this is the big reason why a lot of naysayers might say to avoid melatonin, because of fear that you're going to stop producing your own. But there's no built-in negative feedback loop like there is with a lot of hormones. Your melatonin is 100% created from light going into your eyes during the day. And the amount of light that's going into your eyes is going to build a certain amount of melatonin. And then when you get complete darkness, that melatonin in the pineal is going to release. And what is really important to understand is that there's so much more melatonin that's being released in your body outside of the pineal. So the conversation of this tiny little bit of melatonin being produced in the pineal and what we should dose our bodies with is really ridiculous, because that's the only conversation, is that they're just thinking in terms of sleep, right? And that's why you'll see people looking at taking, a half a milligram, or, less than 10 or 5 or whatever, like very low doses, right? Because they're just thinking of the sleep application. And it does work for a lot of people and help with a lot of people with these lower doses for sleep. But what I talk about when I talk about melatonin, I wrote a book on this. It's on Amazon. It's called Melatonin Miracle Molecule. Is I talk about how every cell in the body makes melatonin, that we're subjected to so much stresses these days, electromagnetic, mental, emotional stress. We're all too busy. We're not relaxing enough. Everybody needs to be doing this coherent heart meditation more often on a daily basis, just keeping the jets in neutral. We don't want to, because we're chasing this, I'm good, am I good enough, am I lovable? It's like these two core wounds that we're trying to prove to the world, that we're enough and that we're lovable to ourselves, right? But then it's getting us doing and being and just busy all the time. And that's why a lot of times it's uncomfortable for a lot of people to just stop and do nothing. But ultimately, the body needs breaks, and that's what melatonin really is. It's the ultimate brake system on the body, because it's going to be associated with deep states of rest at night. And it is the primary balancing hormone for the autonomic nervous system, specifically the parasympathetic nervous system.
Hmm.
The sympathetic nervous system is really more based on norepinephrine and cortisol, right? Cortisol throughout the body from the adrenal glands, norepinephrine in the brain. And those are the hormones that get you up in the morning and get you doing things and accomplishing things and activating something called the salient network, which is where you're focused on a single thing, right? And I suspect you guys have done Joe Dispenza, right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So Joe has you focusing on more like expanding that. So it's the opposite of the salient network. It's the opposite of like focusing on a single thing. It's the space around the body, right?
Mhm.
And this is very calming to our nervous system. This is very parasympathetic. This is where all the spiritual growth is in the deep relaxation. And this is what melatonin really is all about. And what's really crazy, right? If you really want to think about this and get, thinking about like the spiritual applications, is how do we make DMT? And what is DMT?
Mm.
It's from melatonin, right? So melatonin converts into DMT, and that's the molecule that really activates the pineal and allows us to see things that are the non-physical world, right? The divine, right? The quantum field, right? There, where we get to like experience this part of our existence that is not physical, right? It's there, we know it's there, but you can't touch it. You can experience it, you can know it at a certain level, right? Depending on your evolution spiritually, or how much plant medicine you've consumed.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was actually just doing DMT breathing before this. So maybe I'll need some melatonin to supplement my DMT breathing to increase my experience.
Yeah, I do believe, well, think about this. Joe has you wake up at 3 a.m. because
Yeah.
that's when the melatonin's highest. Why not just do a Sandman suppository
Get the
and
Sandman.
get on the mat, man, and just do it.
Dude, you should be standing outside his retreats with your little bag and say, take this.
Get into the void.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
question before we
Yeah.
move on. Now, would it make more sense to take more melatonin in the winter when you're getting less from natural sunlight?
Yes, anytime we're not getting sun,
Hmm.
it becomes more important to take it exogenously. So like I've been inside all day. Excuse me. I haven't really had a lot of exposure to sun at all, today. But I typically when I wake up in the morning, I go to the beach and I watch the sun come up, and I get probably a good hour of sunlight in the morning. I do breath work, ground on the beach. I've got a whole protocol that I've developed with Mitozen products. I don't think you even know like that much about what we're doing. It's like, especially with the breath work and like the whole Joe Dispenza thing, man. I'd love to share just a little bit with you about how I'm using some products with breath work.
Please,
Yes.
My
please.
morning routine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the root is like where the energy comes up from Gaia, right? It's like that Gaia energy, and we want to lift that up, right? When we're doing our breath work, we do that by contracting the perineum, right, and the bathroom muscles, and just kind of lifting that energy up, squeezing these different bundas, right, the energy centers. And what we're doing is we're putting pressures into the cerebral spinal fluid, right? And then that cerebral spinal fluid is, as it puts pressure on the pineal, is creating that piezoelectric effect, right? This is Joe's lecture, right? We're spoiler alert. So there's a essential oil blend that I created called Root Zen, and you basically apply this oil to your perineum, and there's a real experiential sensation with that. It's a number of rosemary, camphor, peppermint, spearmint. There's some different terpenes like eucalyptol from eucalyptus. So it's as you can tell, it's like it's got a lot of like power, right? Like you feel that activation happening, right? And so women have to be a little bit more careful than men, but it's just a dab. So I like to do that at first, as soon as I sit down. And then we have a formula with peppermint, spearmint, manuka honey, phosphatidylcholine. It's got eucalyptus and menthol. And it's really experiential. You put it in your mouth and it's just like totally opens up this whole center, you know, like it opens up your airways, but it's really working on, you know, these energy centers as well. So that's how I sit down, I start that. And then as the sun's coming up, we have an eye drop that's called Blue Eyes, and it's got methylene blue, gold, silver, and a splash of peppermint. And it's Nicotine minerals, which is like a deep sea mineral. And so as I'm watching the sun come up, I drop these drops into my eyes, and the light is going through this substance into my eyes and all the way back to my pineal, carrying the energy of these. These are very powerful energetic substances, right? They work on the mitochondria and the deep aspect of cellular health. So once I've done the Blue Eyes, then I go into my breath. You know, I've got the root zen, I do the breath honey, I do the eye drops, and then I go into my breath. And there's another eye drop that I like to use, but the breath that I've been doing lately, and I kind of move around, I do different types of breath, but it's 15 breaths where I go in through the nose, out through the mouth, belly, chest. You know, this is anybody doing breath work, this is just 101 stuff, right? And then the last 10 breaths is only in and out through the mouth, but I make a noise on the exhale because I'm using this vibroacoustic therapy, you know, throughout the body. So it'd be so I do that for 10. And then my last breath in, I draw this other eye drop is called Irie. And have you done Sananga?
No, what's Sananga?
Sananga is an Amazonian herb that burns. It's like hape is to the nose.
Oh, okay.
So it's called Blue Irie. So it's got methylene blue, gold, ormus, and this Sananga root extract, right? So so when you drop it in the eye, but like when you really do Sananga, like traditionally, it's really concentrated, and your eyes are burning for like a good 10 to 15 minutes, which is really, it's challenging. A lot of times people do it and they don't really want to ever do it again, right? So what I've done is I've created a product that you have a pretty good burn, like you really feel it, but no more than 30 seconds. Usually it's only about 10 or 15 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So why would you do this? Why would you subject yourself to like even 10 or 15
I was wondering that.
You already signed up, I feel like.
I know.
Because what I found is my breath hold time increases quite dramatically with that.
Oh, wow.
I'll usually just do that on the last breath cycle. And I'll do and so what I practice too is accepting the burn, right? Knowing that it's just temporary. And there's something very powerful in practicing acceptance of discomfort, right?
I love this, man.
Of suffering, right?
Yeah.
So that I get to sit there and I get to just accept that and not overreact or get practice drama. And it's gone in, for me, 10 seconds, right? And there's just this like really blissful, silent, you're just so present in the now, and you're holding your breath. But the reason that does that is because it's activating my trigeminal nerve, which is the sensory nerve to the eyes, face, nose, and mouth. And that's why hape works. We actually make a nasal spray called Zen, which is it's basically hape in a nasal spray.
Oh, really?
And this can be used the same way in breath work, where that last breath.
We stay away from nicotine here.
Yeah.
But
it's not for everybody. I have a bit of an addicted personality myself. So yeah, I try to be, you know, I try to moderate that, otherwise it can be several times a day. And, it's not a healthy thing there's healthy things that become unhealthy, but certainly if you're smoking nicotine, it's terrible. But there's a lot of studies that show that nicotine prevents Parkinson's, and it can be really beneficial for the brain. Anybody that has long hauler disease, if you do nicotine, even just for a few days, it clears out the spike proteins from the nicotinic receptors, and it could be like a complete miracle cure.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I definitely am excited because I do a lot of men's breathwork groups, and so like once a year we'll meet up in person. There'll be like 20 of us around, fire doing breath. I'm excited to be passing around your products, take this to the next level,
Yeah, well, maybe I'll be sitting right next to you, and
Yeah,
like,
man,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
one on Zoom once a week, so you're always welcome to join. Very
Okay.
good. Yeah, I'll send you the info.
Yeah. Well, I really want you to try the Irie,
Yeah,
the blue Irie, and then the blue eyes,
yeah.
and the root Zen and the breath honey. It's like our breath work. So the Zen meditation mist is like an optional breath work tool as well that we kind of touched on a little bit. But we do sell these as kits for like breath work kit, and I'd love for you
No
to
way.
to,
Nice.
to try that, and I'd love to hear your feedback on it.
It's so
That
up your
would
alley.
literally make me so happy. I did breath work with my two buddies right before I came on. I do it every morning. We hop on the Zoom, we start the day, just a good way to keep each other accountable and having great days. So, and then once a week we all get together.
Oh, amazing. I
Yeah.
love I love
Yeah.
that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we talk about before we go, because I'm so interested in glutathione.
Yeah.
And, we have so many people in our group who are stuck in some kind of chronic disease state. There are so many people with mold, with Lyme's disease. So I'd love to hear more about glutathione and what you feel like is protocol for people that have been stuck in the long haul COVID stuff, or whatever those low grade chronic illnesses are that people just seem to be stuck for so long and they're suffering.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, glutathione was one of the first things that really moved the needle. And one of the reasons it did is that I was suffering from biotoxin illness. So basically, between the mold and the Lyme and all the different infections, the toxins that were being secreted from all these microbes were just creating a tremendous amount of inflammation in my body. And so what glutathione does is it's got what's called a sulfur helix. And so it basically wraps around toxins and chaperones them out of the body. And so it's one of the ways that your body detoxes. It's the primary way that it detoxes a lot of these biotoxins, and also heavy metals, chemicals out of our environment. So a lot of nasty stuff. And when we start running low in glutathione, and glutathione is produced by the liver takes different amino acids and it puts it together and produces glutathione. You can also take N-acetylcysteine, which is something that's readily available at most, online and at most stores. And that actually acts as building blocks to raise your glutathione levels. But honestly, the best, most powerful is, and we have a 600 milligram suppository, and that's usually what I recommend people do. We have a 1500 milligram, but really the 600 is really the way to go. It's the most popular. And that's something that you'd want to take at night, because glutathione is also one of 3 sleep promoting substances. So it actually helps sleep. And that's why we have in our Sandman, we have 200 milligrams of melatonin and 250 milligrams of glutathione. That's they're very synergistic together.
Awesome. Well, we definitely are going to want to do this again because I have like 100 more questions. So hopefully you'll come back with us down the road. My last question, well, I have 2 questions. One, where'd you get that necklace, man? I love that necklace. That thing's so sick.
Yeah, this necklace, I haven't had it carbon dated, but some of the other relics that were dug up in Mexico, there's an alien face on it.
Nice.
They're like 4,000 to 8,000 years old.
Sweet.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I knew there was something. This got a good energy. And then my last question is, how else can we support you? Anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you, support you on your journey? We really appreciate the work you're doing in the world, man. It's impressive, and we're grateful to have gotten to meet you today.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for offering. I just sharing your story, sharing your success with the products. I'm on Instagram quite a bit at Dr. John Lieurance. We have a clinic. You can find the clinic at advancedrejuvenation.us. And then Mitozen is a lot of the products that we've been talking about are not available to the public. So you might be familiar with mitozen.com, where we have a lot of the suppositories are there, but most of the products that we talked about, you have to be a member. So it's mitozen.club, and it's a $10 lifetime membership fee. But we also have a lot of educational materials there that are free. A lot of the events that we do here in Sarasota, we've recorded everything from like the women's health event to Ben Greenfield and Luke Story and I did an event last December called Elements of Vitality. That's on there. Some really, really great health wisdom, biohacking wisdom there.
Awesome. And we'll have everything that we talked about, we'll have links to in the description.
Yeah,
And we hope you'll come back again, because we have loads more that we could talk about.
absolutely.
I'd love
Yeah.
to. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much. And thank you, John. It's great getting to know you.
Sending love to everybody.
This interview is part of our 30-day Heart Coherence Challenge.
During these challenges, we send you a heart coherence meditation every day for 30 days, each designed to bring powerful healing benefits.
Throughout the event, we also release incredible interviews with guest speakers who inspire and uplift, like the one you're listening to right now.
If you would like to join a future challenge, go to www.heartcoherencecollaborative.com and register now. The link is in the description.
We're sending you love and hope you join us for the next challenge.
We
We love you.